Welcome to another episode of Real Wealth Podcast in Season 2. We've got Dioane Gates here, and he has decided to join us for the afternoon. This is Leading Edge Financial Planning sponsored. We're here to help you make wise financial decisions with your money. So today we're going to talk about living the best life possible with the time we have left with Mr. Dioane Gates and learn about his entrepreneurial journey and life experiences and all kinds of lessons learned. So thank you for coming on.
No, it's a real privilege and an honor to be here. I'm just really just honored, humbled by the fact that I'm here. So many things you do in life that you think aren't amounting to much. And then when people want to talk to you about it, it kind of is like, really? Someone wants to hear me talk about that? And so I'm excited.
Absolutely. And so I think I don't know if it was the first time I knew of your church down in South Wichita. What was that called again?
Yeah, Mending Place at South City.
Mending Place.
Yeah, Mending Place Church. Yeah.
Yeah. And that went for a few years.
Yeah, August 2009 we started. And then me and my wife decided to retire. Our last service was the second week of August of 2021. So we just celebrating a year of retirement from the ministry. We were church planters. So
wow,
12 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And from what I hear, you guys impacted a lot of lives through that church. And that had to be a tough decision to retire from that.
Yeah,
maybe it wasn't.
It's funny. This is a funny story. So I've been getting these conversations from other people who are in ministry, like they're checking on me to see if I'm okay. Kind of like, like, are you all right? Like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. And then when they find out that I'm okay, then they're like secretly wanting to know how I did it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Tell me how you got out of it. You know what I mean? So no, it's been good, man. I retirement has been good because I felt like the Lord was telling me to do it from afar off, because there's a part of me that's prideful, and it was showing up and wanting to continue even at the cost of my health, my marriage, my children. No, God told me to do this. I'm going to do it until I just die. And I got a big problem with, putting time frames and parameters on things that would make me look good if I were to be able to complete it or finish it. If I were able to finish this or go another 10 years, then it would really make me look good if I got to 20 versus stopping at 12. Mm-hmm. And I had to really just kind of come to grips with the fact that the Lord was telling me that it was time to transition, not change my purpose, but just change my platform, which is hard for me to think about. And I had to undo some inner vows I made about length of time, how long I should go, or what would be impressive to me that might be impressive to other people, that I could hang my hat on the fact that I did it this long, or for, how that goes. It's just it's a real weird mind game. And I think that a lot of times my athletic background had a negative impact on me, because, you're not tired, it's the fourth quarter, you got a little bit more in you, keep going. And really it was becoming detrimental because I was being disobedient.
Yeah. Well, good job coming to terms with that.
That's pretty clean the way I said it, but it was really sloppy for like 2 years there, where I was kind of wrestling with the idea, who am I without this? And is God going to be okay with me? Will he still be good to me if I don't? And if I miss it, let's just be honest. I played it out through my mind, like, worst case scenario, this is not him. It's just my fatigue talking. And I just need a sabbatical. Maybe I don't need to completely quit. But if I miss it completely and I'm wrong, then can he still work with that? And obviously the answer is yes. And so that kind of gave me peace of mind to go ahead and go forward with the decision. So my marriage is doing good. The kids are doing really good. I feel like I'm getting like a second wind. So it's been healthy for me and us. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not like you disappeared. I remember you prayed for the Wichita prayer breakfast at least, I think, a year ago.
Yeah,
I wasn't there this year, but and then you've been at Lead Wichita, and then you were on the panel, I think, at the Global Leadership Summit.
I wasn't this year.
Oh, you were? Okay.
This year. Yeah, I was there at the Global Leadership Summit, but I wasn't actually a speaker.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I guess, okay. Well, I guess I confused. So Audra was up there, and she was on our podcast a little bit before. And then one of the other, anyways, so we'll have him on later this fall.
Okay.
But yeah. So anyways, you've been active in the leadership space,
mm-hmm.
and you're helping out with Lead Wichita. And talk a little bit about what you're doing in leadership, business, strategic planning, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, you know how life, it's, I just think about how my life has went, and how things have all been added to, it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and all of a sudden you get this hodgepodge of you, who you are. I'm relatively eclectic in my background, like as many of us are. But my leadership journey has been so unique because I was raised by my grandmother, who's got a 4th grade education. And so my grandmother's leadership theory and philosophy, as I'm aware of it, has a lot to do with the things that I'm learning right now, where time is a crunch, or things are more fluid than we would like them to be, and resources are limited. I grew up in that environment, and I got the chance to see my grandmother exercise leadership in a real world day-to-day basis. And now I moved to teaching adaptive leadership theory that talks about the same thing, the principles that I was getting a chance to see my grandmother live out. I'm actually now being able to put words to them, and then go and take that same idea or philosophy into other rooms. So my leadership journey, obviously I needed to become a better leader, especially running and leading the church, and also working with our companies, especially having teams and people depending on you and wanting to make sure that there's consistency in product availability, and also how we did the church, and so on and so forth. It was going to require that I got better at leading, because I needed to develop leaders. I think that essentially was the main reason why we put so much energy into leadership, is because we realized that everything we were doing, we were going to have better teams. And we, in of ourselves, me and my wife, we weren't good enough but at the moment. So we had to get better so we could then help other people get better, so that we could then leverage our leadership abilities in general. And so that really is a necessity, is why I started really studying leadership, and why I probably teach it today is because I realized that, most people think that if I can just hire the right person, but for nonprofits, it's all about leadership development, because I don't have enough money to attract people who are already developed. I have to refine them, once they get there. So that's a little bit about my leadership journey. So leadership, and from my perspective, what I see in Scripture, the greatest leader that I've seen exercise adaptive leadership is Jesus. But the leadership theory that's being taught at the Leadership Center obviously was created by Heifetz and Linsky, 2 guys from Harvard, created this leadership theory. And so we're using those leadership theory principles, and I can easily overlay them with my background in church and on law enforcement, because I did 17 years law enforcement with Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department. And all of those settings, you could easily default to authority and say, well, if we had better authority, then we would be better, then I could do better. But truly, when we start thinking about leadership as an activity, if we just exercise leadership and we give people space to create space for people to exercise leadership, then it gives us space to kind of explore more possibilities and really start making progress on things that genuinely are important to us as a community, as a families. How do we make progress, not solve problems? Because that's one of the things I think gets a little misnomer. Like, if we were better leaders, we would solve more problems. And there's times where we solve problems through technical means, but the type of challenges that we face as a community, those types of challenges are going to require us to learn something different and behave differently. And that's totally different than you just, giving me an A, B, C, D of what I need to do to get from here to there. It's more complicated than that. It's too many variables to just give us a prescriptive method to get from here to there.
Yeah, interesting. So what is adaptive leadership theory in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, it's
so that I can understand it.
Yeah, so it's
like a 4-year-old.
Yeah, different than. Let me use this as an example. Different than charismatic leadership theory. I'm just use this as an example. So there's hundreds of theories about leadership, what type of leadership style. Adaptive leadership theory simply says that there is the ability for anyone to exercise leadership, and leadership in of itself is not just title or position or authority, it's activity. So if you're in the room, you got the corner office, people expect for you to be the best leader. You are the leader of this organization or this family or this community, whatever. Adaptive leadership theory says that there's principles that anyone can exercise regardless of tenure, regardless of resource, regardless of education, blah, 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 fill in the blank, that anyone can exercise leadership. And it's not just for the elite. It's not just for those who've come from certain places and know certain people, but it's anyone can do it at any time. And so that's the beauty of it, is because it opens the door of saying that, hey, Mike, you're not just a leader because you have the title or you got an office downtown. You know what I mean? But anyone can jump in and help us move the needle on the problems that matter most to us as a community based on us exercising some of the principles that we talk about. So some of the big bucket pieces that we talk about with adaptive leadership theory is managing self, diagnosing situation, intervening skillfully, and energizing others. How do we do those things? And then when we work on doing those things, then we get better at being adaptive and moving in and out of spaces that are fluid. And quite frankly, there is no clear roadmap. It's going to require us to learn and to be able to take data in as it comes and then make decisions based on that. And so it's different saying that some problems are technical and some problems are adaptive. And so when we think about the technical problems, then there's a clear solution. There's someone who has expertise. We can pay someone enough money to get that fixed, that type of thing. But the stuff that really, really keeps us up at night, the things that make us want to be better, do better, long for more, maybe the things that make us hire politicians who sound like they know what they're going to do and what they can do, is because we really want someone to give us hope that this big gap between where we are and where we want to be, that there's some way that we can navigate that and maybe get us a little bit closer to where we'd hope we could be, and that type of leadership, I believe, adaptive leadership theory helps us do that. And it's not just a reliance on one person or a couple of people in our community or in our system, our world. That was a long answer, but hopefully clarified what adaptive is versus just traditional leadership. Because there's a lot of books you can find. You can go to any bookstore, you can go to Amazon, and you can find 1,000 books on leadership, and they don't necessarily give you like a roadmap. They just have real cool quips, and there's nothing wrong with having, a flashy catchphrase or this or that, and that helps in some places. I'm not saying to get rid of that, but
hopefully the tool just helps the concept to stick.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm talking about. That right there is like, I want it to be more than you having a poster on your wall that says endurance and some cool picture above it.
Maybe I should start with a poster on my wall.
Yeah, that's your leadership journey. That poster, that's the right there.
My walls are bare around here. Anyway, okay. So, right. So it's not about a quip. It's functional training as it comes to how do you energize, move in and out of the situation. The concept that comes to mind when you describe that in maybe everyday relationships that we're in would be differentiation. So, some family systems are more merged, or in like where what one person does, the others kind of are along for the ride. Yeah. But and I'm probably doing a poor job of explaining this because I'm not a trained therapist or anything. Hey. But the differentiation piece is like, say, I know who I am, you know who you are, and we're both comfortable in our own skin. You can choose to do your thing, I choose my thing. But you know what? Like, we're better for it because when you need me to come in and help you up and energize you and pick you up off the ground because something really bad happened, I'm able to do that. And I enter into your space, but I don't adopt where you're at for myself.
I love it. I love that phrase, enter into your space. It makes me think about just how to me that it talks about perspective, right? I mean, we use the word empathy all the time, but I like thinking about perspective, like how I might be able to see what makes you think this way about that. Why do you think this way about that? Why do you react this way when you see this or hear this or feel this? And that takes a lot of energy, right? To hold space for something that's different than your norm. You know what I mean? Like I'm a hold space for Mike. Mike's talking to me about something that I just completely disagree with his behavior and everything else, or his philosophy or his beliefs or whatever, but I'm holding space for it. And a lot of times we don't do that well in our society. We feel, and from my perspective, it seems as if though we've come to the point to where we feel like there's like this resource drain that even in my mind, I can't hold space for difference. Like I don't even have the room in my mind to hold space that there might be another perspective on this. And that's just dangerous to me because we become so differentiated in the sense that I want my difference to be trumped or come up or be more important than our unity. I like that. You know what I mean? Like I want to continue to be different, and my difference has to be so big, so important that it to me it opens us up for vulnerable places, because it's hard for us then to get together on things that matter to us. I'm not saying we need to always agree. I'm saying that there has to be something that unites us, but our differences has become so important. Like I want people to know that I'm different before we know that we are united on a particular thing or a cause. I don't even know how I got into that, so just forgive me.
That's okay. It's
come on, man.
Fluid thought. It's a conversation.
Next time, man, just look at me like, hey, we're not going there. Stop.
Well, okay, so we'll jump into something else, but before that, it did bring to mind, I thought it was a super profound thought, because we're both, I guess I'm gonna go to it. I'm just gonna go to it because I need to go to it, but we're both going to the thing after this. But
yes,
Pathway had a series on. It was called "Separation of Church and Hate," and it was great. And one of the things that they highlighted that I thought was so profound, because they go, we're actually not that unaccepting based on race, gender, all these things. Like we can actually come to the table and I think be pretty okay with each other until you get to diversity of thought.
Man.
So long as somebody thinks like you can be pretty accepting. But if they truly think differently than you, that's a challenging one. And what was really cool is they say, hey, go find somebody that genuinely thinks differently on, the abortion vote was a big one.
Yeah. And
they said, go find someone that, if you're a yes, go find a no. If you're a no, go find a yes, and just ask them, how'd you get here? Why is this important to you? What do you think about it? And just shut up, ask questions, shut up,
That last part is hard. We ask questions, but we don't shut up. It's easy, right?
It is.
It's hard. It's hard.
But I think that's a skill that we've got to get better at, is just learning to listen to people and accept them where they're at.
Yeah, obviously, when we're talking about, having a high impact life, and I think high impact life it's a type of life that you have to exercise the expansion of your capacity, your mind, whatever, right? I'm not saying that you need to exercise in a behavior. I'm saying you just need to make room for the fact that there are other perspectives, and that if I have knowledge of another's perspective, it doesn't diminish my own beliefs or my own philosophies. But we sometimes feel like, oh, get that away from me. I can't even see that, because if I see that, then it's going to make me change my, you know what I mean? Like we're a little stronger in our thought beyond that. But my hope is that we realize this is an exercise, that there's so many forces pushing in that how if we'll get atrophied if we don't go to the gym, like the muscles you did have today, if you don't work them, they will eventually go away. Right. And so it's the same way with us in our capacity, in my mind, to share space with people who are different. If I don't exercise that, it just takes a matter of time for me to become rigid in my thinking. If I don't exercise and continually push and stretch, and I will tell you that there are sometimes I do get fatigued with an idea, an ideology, a thought. Like I don't want to continue to have to deal with that, but that's the thing that stretches me. Whether it's racial issues, whether it's economic issues that are different than where I'm at right now, or education, whatever, healthcare, whatever it might be, that I'd rather not it be that way. I still have to continue to stretch myself to say, like, what else is out there, because it's detrimental, I think, to me as just an individual, a human living in this world. But also then it makes for poor leadership when I can only work with people who think like me. Where's the fun in that? What can you really do if you're only working with people who think like you or see the problem the same as you do?
That's right. Yeah. Thinking creatively, problem solving. Yeah. That all spirals down when everybody's like, yeah, it sounds great. Let's do it. It's like, come on.
That's like a clue, right? That's a clue. Like if people are always saying yes, yeah, I agree with you, or nodding yes to you, then you need to get in another room. You need to start talking to some different people.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your I guess let's jump to the entrepreneurial side because we've been having some discussion, but yeah, let's talk about your business background. So you went to Wichita State, you graduated from the Barton School of Business.
Yes.
And you have a laundromat business, and
yes.
I think you've had some and maybe let it go. But yeah, talk a little bit about business experience, and then also maybe an unexpected challenge you came up on and you had to push through it and you learned something.
Yeah, so me and my wife decided back in, I want to say 2005, that we were going to be more than just people who went to work, working for the weekend type thing. And so she just asked me flat out one day at the kitchen table, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? We got to do more than this. We got to be more than this. And I get it. She was asking for vision, purpose, all that for our family. And I'd always wanted to be a laundromat owner because I grew up in a house where we didn't have a consistent working washer and dryer. And so I spent a lot of time at a laundromat. And just so happens that there was a new laundromat built across from the church we were attending. So on Wednesday nights, I would get dropped off with my sister to do laundry while I didn't want to be at church anyway. So I enjoyed doing the laundry versus actually being at the church. And so I just had that mindset. It was just back in the back of my mind, like, man, I can own one of these one day. Didn't even really know why, but I was just a little person thinking about, things. And so at that moment, 2005, fast forward, my wife was asking me what we're going to do. And I said, you know what? I've always wanted to own a laundromat. And so we just started the journey of learning. And here's what we found out. So eventually we set out in 2005. We actually bought our first one in December of 2008. So it was about a almost 4 year walk this through type thing. And what I found out is that I need to learn far more than I ever thought, right? Reading periodicals, asking questions, trying to figure that out. That was pretty intense. And then when I got to the point to where I was fatigued and wanted to give up on it was really when I was ready to actually start doing things physically to actually say that I was a laundromat owner. So my mentor, which is important, I'll say this, I thought I needed money initially. But what I realized now is that I needed mentorship more than I needed money. So if anyone's out there listening and you're thinking like, if they would just give me the money, if I just had enough money or capital, I'd be good. Well, let me say this. I had the money at one point. It wasn't until he gave me the opportunity to manage it, threw me the keys and said, hey, I want you to run this one for me. So you can see if it's going to fit into your life because you just got a bunch of thoughts right now until you actually do it. And so he threw me the keys and I started running it and I was like, man, this is every day.
Right. Reality's got to set in.
This is every day. Every day, not the first 365 days, but every day. You know what I mean? It was every day and then sometimes multiple times a day, depending on, how things went. And that really opened my eyes to how long can you actually do this? I was fixing my own machines. I was doing all that. You know what I mean? Answering every call. At the time I was doing law enforcement too. So I had sometimes I would go to work. I had my uniform on. I had my cell phone for my personal cell phone in one pocket, and I'd have the cell phone for the laundry attached to me, praying that no one would call during the middle of the day because I had to tell them I'd get back to you later or whatever. So it was absolutely eye opening. So then after a year of doing that, my mentor says, okay, now I want to sell this one. Do you want to buy it? Which was the perfect time to ask me, did I want to buy it? Because I had been a year in. I've been 12 months of, while I'm at the movies, the phone might ring. While I'm out with family. When I go on vacation, I had to figure out who was going to watch it. You know what I mean? It was like the kid who would never grow up. That's exactly what it was. You just bought a kid who's never going to grow up. You know what I mean? And there's some benefits financially. I'm not saying it was all bad, but you quickly see how those have-tos can outweigh some of those benefits. And so when he asked me in that place of sobriety, I could make a decision that I couldn't have made a year earlier or even 3 years earlier when I thought that's what I really want to do. So the mentorship, that in itself was just so valuable. I can't imagine anyone doing something right now that they've never done before without seeking out an internship, mentorship, some type of ship. You need something. You can't just go out here by yourself, for sure.
Yeah, and your ship sailed. So you're up to how many do you have now?
I sold this. I worked Derby for 10 years. which is a long time, man. So I sold it and I bought another one, a larger one, a Spring Clean Laundromat at 29th Street North. It's 345 West 29th Street North. Anyone needs to do your comforter, just stop on in. But that one has given me more freedom because I have a team. And so where I know that it's 24 hours a day, operate laundry. So we got 3 shifts. There's someone there right now.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Someone's right there right now. My team member's there working, and I can just make a phone call and check on it, or video. I can see the cameras, or, so it's funny how the more debt. So I got way more debt than I had when I was in that one, but I have way more freedom to leverage the team now. So I'm making more money, but I could make more money if I were to do a shift or do something extra. But because I have a payroll, it gives me the freedom to where I could do other things like have my own consulting company, or, do some other things that I kind of am more interested in right now. So it has afforded me a lot of space and opportunity. So, but I will say that the thing that you asked, the second question, was kind of like, well, so what happened that I wasn't expecting, or that, is that kind of the second question?
Yeah. A lesson that you learned that you weren't expecting, or a problem you ran into that was unexpected?
Yeah. I think the main thing is that when I was working the laundry by myself, and I think this will scale. So someone's listening like, I'm not interested in laundries. Well, just hold on a second. Because I think this scales. When I wasn't so much engaged with the customer myself when I was at Derby. I was doing my own stuff, and people could see me, talk to me, and I'm going to give them the highest quality, right? Because I'm the guy who owns it. I'm the one responsible. Great. But I didn't realize the level of need for team development until I got the new location, where I got six employees, and they're not always talking to me. They're talking to them. They're talking to my employees more than they're talking to me. And so there was really an emphasis placed on team development that I never really thought about like that. Because with the church, people knew that I was the pastor, the senior pastor, and it was easy for people to say, well, I talked to so-and-so, but I didn't talk to him. And I had a little bit of margin in that because of the way that structure is set up. It wasn't the same way at the laundry. People might not have never seen me, you know what I mean? But they only knew my attendant or our team member. And so it was important for me to really start having staff meetings, and where people say, you have a staff meeting with people, 6 people who work at the laundromat and they barely make above minimum wage. Yeah, I'm having a staff meeting, because if you don't, you end up having money walk out the door because people aren't mad at you, they're mad at your staff. And so that to me was really revelatory, because I got into a point to where I was like, man, I was so tired from doing all the work at Derby. I was like, they got it. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, they've got it. And so I started just hearing complaints, and people were complaining and complaining and complaining. I was like, what is going on? And the team was just suffering, because I hadn't really set any consistency, culture, structure. And so that was a real big eye opener for me.
Yeah, you think you have arrived and it's time to put it on autopilot.
Man, wrong. Again, it's another instance of me being wrong. You know what I mean? Like, what's funny is I've been wrong so much that I think, yeah, right. Like, I wish people would, we get on podcasts and we start talking, and we just start talking about all the things we're doing really well, which is the reason why we're there, right? I mean, you don't bring people on who don't have anything to offer, right? There's no level of success or aspiration about them. You bring people on that people could probably connect with in some way. But truly, the best conversations that I've heard are with people like, let me tell you how I messed this all up. So I messed up in so many ways with the new season with our laundromat, or even with the church, is that I didn't do a good job taking care of myself. And so when I would finally get a little breathing room, the pendulum would swing so far the other way that it wasn't healthy. And you can see this. Me and my wife were just talking about this the other day. You can see this in scripture too with Noah. He gets a little bit of breathing room. He gets off the ark, and then he swings so far the other way, like he's like drunk and he's falling down. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like you were so structured for so long that there wasn't any like reprieve. You were on the ark, you couldn't get off, and now all of a sudden you get off and you just go like wild.
The dam breaks.
Yeah, and I think that happens to us. You know what I mean? Like, what happens to us when we've just been pent up without that reprieve or a little bit of respite for so long? I think it's just a good warning sign. Because that's where I make a lot of my mistakes. I go, 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 go. And then there's a little bit of breathing where I'm like, and it's hard for me to get my momentum back. I don't do a good enough job of kind of letting off the gas easy. And you know what I mean? I full stop, and then I got to rev back up, full stop, rev back up. So,
and that's a great turning point to ask you about, what do you do to take care of yourself? Because when we're living the best life possible, we're talking about quality of life, not just today, but down the road. And we got to take care of ourselves so that we have something left down the road. How do you take care of yourself?
I'm gonna say the first way is I gotta watch what I consume, not just eat, but like what am I consuming? What type of materials am I consuming regularly? Whether it's what I'm watching, what I'm listening to, and it's not just porn or something perverse or dark. It's nothing like that. Not always that, but I'm just saying all of that.
By the way, I think you're the first person to say porn on the podcast.
Am I the first one?
I think so.
Is porn not a real issue? Or is it like, okay.
No, it's a super real issue.
Yeah, man. Let's talk, right?
Yeah.
Man.
But that's a great point of like, what are we putting in our minds, our bodies? What are we thinking about? And I mean, I think Deadpool's hilarious. Maybe I'm desensitized to it at this point, but I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to turn on some more Disney Plus.
I don't know, man. Like, rom-com or what? You know what I mean? Like, no, but seriously, my law enforcement career helped me with this because, I started thinking about spiritual resiliency and we got a very dark profession. Law enforcement it's very hard on you in that regard that you start making jokes about things that aren't funny. Just a way to cope. You know what I mean? You become very cynical, jaded about who's smart. The world's full of dumb people. You know what I mean? Like you can only ingest or be around that for so long before you start kind of taking on that type of perspective. And I think it's the same way in any other industry. If you're feeding yourself some things that will continually push you into positions of thought that your glass is now becoming half full, and you know what I mean, and you're just in a bad space. You know what I mean? So I think it's important. So when I know that I'm doing well is when I'm being conscious of what I'm consuming, listening to, watching, reading, and also physically. I like to work out, and so I think exercise is important. My father died of testicular cancer early 2000s. So I'm older than he was when he passed. So my dad died when he was 41. I'm 45 right now. And I don't really have a lot of medical history on the men in my family. And so it's important for me to do the best I can with what I got. I only got one body, and so and I'm not crazy. I do eat ice cream. I ate pizza last night, you know what I mean? I'm not like to the point to where I can't eat anything. No. But I do believe in getting exercise and moving and keeping your body in motion. And so, that to me is going to hopefully pay off dividends long run, barring any accident or something that's unforeseen. I want to live a high quality of life. I want to retire and still be able to do things, and so, I'm kind of putting some seed in the ground and sowing in early with that, with my body, early. And so hopefully it pays off. So.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, I could leave here and get an accident. You know what I mean? And
actually, I have a friend that she got in an accident, I think a year and a half ago, and she's she had a brain injury from it, and so she cannot perform at the same level she used to. So she's got like a full personal assistant and everything, and yeah, it's like
that's wild.
Stuff can change on a dime. And there's another friend of mine. He was riding a motorcycle. And one of the Wichita dump trucks was hauling concrete down the highway, and they just dumped it on the highway.
No way.
Wow. And so he was on a motorcycle, and that did not go well.
That's not good. Man.
But because he was running marathons, he was able to get recovered, I think, back on his feet in like 3 months.
That's amazing.
But he was really messed up.
See his body.
But yeah, I mean, even when we keep ourselves in good shape, that sets us up to be in so much better shape to recover even.
Oh man, by far.
Now brain injury, this is a little different. That's harder, but yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I used to didn't think too much about that type of stuff, like slipping and falling. You know what I mean? I was a young person, never even thinking about that. You know what I mean? But man, listen, you could slip and fall and hit your head on anything, and it changed the game. You know what I mean? Totally different. So I'm with you on that, man. I'm more aware of my limitations now, and that probably has given me more life than anything, because I know I can't do everything. Like, no, don't try that. That's not going to work out. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and I think the more we value our days, we number our days, and we can be thankful for good health.
yeah. Let me add one. So I said what I ingest, kind of like what I'm consuming, like intellectually, that's important. Exercise, right? And I'm also going to say my relationships too. And I'll add that one because I'm really poor at relationships, because sometimes I could be more strategic and I'm using things, you know what I mean? And people can become like a commodity to me. And so I got to be very careful. Like, you know, because I have a gift of strategy, I can see like moves down the road. And it's a gift. God gave it to me, right? But misused, I could be manipulative. You know what I mean? Like, I'm swaying people because I'm already setting you up. I'm sowing some seed in you right now because I want you to do this later on.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I got to be very careful. That's you? I see you laughing, man. Come on, man.
No, I think there's a couple of people that come to mind, but
Yeah.
I do have to be careful of that
Yeah.
myself, because I mean, even in our industry, it's so personal.
Yeah.
Like working with investments or insurance. So it's like, you've got to be totally comfortable, or I've got to be totally comfortable. If I go talk to someone and say, hey, how can I earn your business, or take them out to lunch or whatever, and I know them a different way,
Yeah.
am I totally respecting the duality of the relationship and potential of that? Because dual relationships are tough.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I screw up on the business side for somebody and we're friends, okay, can we deal with that and still be friends?
Yeah.
That's really intimidating. And some people have had really bad experiences, but like being manipulated through somebody that they trusted, and then they got into bed in business with them, and it went bad, and it ended bad, and then they manipulated the relationship side to kind of shove it under the rug.
Come on, man. That to me. Yeah. I mean, and I was in fields specifically with heavy authority fields, like law enforcement. You wear a uniform, you walk in any room, any building, you're like the ultimate authority, right? You know what I mean? Like, I can tell people to do things because of my role. Yeah. You know, you can manipulate people in that, right? There's a lot of authority. There's a lot of power there. Also with the church, as a pastor, there's a lot of authority, a lot of power there, that if you wanted to manipulate people, you could. And I always fought against that, because there's a part of me that's like, do I want to do this the easy way or the hard way? You know, I could do this the easy way. The easy way would be for me to manipulate you through scripture and abuse, and I'll end up getting the results I want faster, but it'll end up biting me in the end, right? Because I've seen that play out. And then on the other side, the hard way is, you know, walking with you as you mature and you grow through this process, even though I know what's going to happen on the other side of this, letting that happen and letting that process play out and letting you mature into, and keeping an open hand with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just keeping my hands open. And I think that style of leadership is hard because it's slow, but it's most fruitful. And so I think my relationships have always been meted out because I had so much going on that I didn't have enough energy to commit to relationships. Unless you were helping me do my thing, I really don't have a lot of time to call you and talk to you to see how you're doing. There's enough people who already want to talk to me that I need to do this for and do this with, that I had become siloed in a way and I didn't even really know it. And so where I was like, there was transactional just relationships just by default, not even because I was intentionally trying to be that way, because my time was so short, my time was so tight. I only got time to work with people who are doing the same thing I'm doing. And even then, now that I have not been doing those things that long, some of those relationships still are there, but there's a lot of them that I thought were maybe more just friendship and relationship that have turned out to be more transactional. So I'm just kind of become more aware of that now as I kind of remove myself from law enforcement and ministry as much. So just a weird kind of experience. But so I hope it's a good warning for somebody who's out there, because we always tell people in law enforcement circles, you cannot spend all your time with people who are in law enforcement, because it'll set you up for this crazy echo chamber. You keep hearing the same story. You talk about work, you talk about the last thing that happened, and you just need a different outlet, someone to interrupt that cycle. And the church is no different. You can't just hang out with church people all the time. You know what I mean? Like, you got to hang out with people who think differently. And I'm not saying that they be your best friends, but you just got to be in a space where you're spending time with people, and that you really, really should think about, like, where am I investing in relationships? Because I tell you, I don't have a lot of hobbies, and truth be told, I don't have a lot of people that I would call like friend. You know what I mean? I have a lot of people that I know, but maybe I have too strong of a definition of what a friend is. But
what's your definition of a friend?
Somebody I can tell a secret to. Yeah, if I can't tell you a secret, then you're really not my friend.
Interesting.
I mean, as it relates to friends, like I don't categorize friend as best friend, or I don't have that type of thing. But if there's something that I've got going on that I need to keep confidential, that's how I judge whether or not you're a friend or not. A safe place for me. That if they create safety for me in the place where I'm weak.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. So with I had Richard Coe on, and we were talking about his relationship with Marvin Martin, and so going to mentorship type relationship or a father-esque type relationship, because he lost his father a while back, and Marvin was there for him. You may not know, you probably don't know Richard. That's okay.
I know Marvin. I mean, but
okay. Anyways,
not personally, but I mean, I know.
Yeah. And with the type of relationship where you've got a level of love and acceptance and grace, is really what leads in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a really cool relationship. I mean, beyond friend, I think.
Yeah, man.
Like that's kind of a next level, but
friends
are awesome.
Yeah, mentorship, right? Like, to me, I don't even count mentors as friends, though. That's kind of weird. Maybe that's something broken in me on that, but I just count them as that might be another transactional thing. And I want to go back and say that, the first thing I said about friendship, someone keeping a secret, I don't mean people keeping things dark that should be dark. I'm just saying that people who will hold me accountable to things that I might. Let me say this: I'm transparent with everyone, but I'm not vulnerable with everyone. Let me say that. That's probably a better way of saying that. Like, you get to know the real Dioane, right? Because I'm transparent. I'll tell you, my mother was 13 when she had me. I was raised by my grandmother at a fourth grade education. And those things aren't necessarily vulnerability to me. But the things that are vulnerable to me, and I know they're vulnerable, to share them, and who do I share those with? I'm very selective with that. Transparent, everyone, right? Vulnerability, not with everybody. So
what's the difference between transparency and vulnerability?
I think transparency is telling the truth of who I am. Like, truthfully, this is my story. Because transparency to me is a historical thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, where you come from, like, who's your father, who's your mother, what'd you score on the SAT? Not the fake number that you tell people to make yourself look good, but what was the real number?
Not the best category.
Yeah. Like, what was the real number? So, like, that to me is historical stuff. Transparency. If I was arrested at some point, I got arrested for DUI and whatever, paraphernalia. That to me is a transparency thing. That's me. But some people may say, like, in my current role, I could never tell people that I got a DUI. So I keep that a secret. That's something that it would make me vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. I would only share that with people who could then, like you were saying, who would be gracious to me, still treat me with the same respect as if though they never knew that, right? It's almost like telling pieces of your testimony. You tell some of your testimony, at certain times, then you tell other parts of it at other times. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Who I could tell my whole story to are people that I would say, like, those are people who are, they're rare for me personally, that especially with the roles that I've played, for people to be able to take those things that they know about me and still honor me and still know that I'm that person. I still carry that role of responsibility, even though they know that I might have done this, or I might be struggling in this, or those are not, I don't share that with everybody.
Yeah. And thank goodness we all can grow.
Yeah.
Through that, we're still going to carry a residue of who we used to be.
True. And listen, my analogy might not be fitting for anybody else, and I completely get that. So I'm not saying that my definition of friendship is right. I'm just saying that's just my definition. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So, what does living the best life possible look like for you today?
That's a good question, man. What does it look like? It looks like me taking vacations. And I mean, I'm not just being like, selfish here, but I mean, for years with the church and ministry, I hardly ever got away. So me and my wife getting away, it looks like me being okay with not having a calendar jam packed, you know, me spending a lot of time listening to people, and just experiencing different cultures. Um, I get refreshed by going to museums. So I like going to museums, art or otherwise. I like to see things, read up on history. I like to touch things. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, that's a super old whatever. And like, man, I want to feel that. I like going and seeing different things. So there's like a wanderlust in me. Like I like seeing different places and getting out of the space, out of the norm. So there's a whole bunch of things. My best life is learning with family, like experiencing things with my kids, having experiences with them, my wife. That to me is like I'm at a super happy place when they're all together, when we're all together. Like if I could get my kids and my wife together and we're going and experiencing something for the first time together, it's a win. You know what I mean? That's my best. And obviously some of that takes resource to do that. So being in a place financially where I can do that, planning on being able to do that not only for my kids but the next generation. I think those things help shape us, make us better humans. The more experiences we can have, and so I'm all into that. That's me living my best life, and also at the heart of it, I'm a coach. So I mean, as long as I can continue to coach people, the secret here, I always wanted to be like a college or NFL coach. Doesn't necessarily have to be the head coach, but I want to, coach a football team, some way, somehow. So playing that out is always good for me. So that's part of me living my best life. Now I know that it doesn't have to be practically that, but principally, if I get a chance to coach people, call plays, encourage people to do better than they thought they could do, I'm winning.
Nice. Travel, coaching, learning with the family.
And obviously, my role with the pastor and leadership, I kind of encapsulate coaching with leadership development, sharing my faith when it's appropriate, how I do that, how I model it, so those things are all intertwined in it because it's just not X's and O's. Coaching is beyond just X's and O's. It's more of the strategy. So I kind of feel like my life is more than that too.
Yeah, to go along with the points you're making, what you're describing are investing in experiences, and it's actually been proven that, or studied. Okay, it's been studied.
I'll go with it.
Proven is kind of close.
If you had said proven, I would have went with it. I'd have been like, okay, just
yeah. But it's been studied that if investing in experiences is actually more, actually yields more happiness than investing in things.
Man, listen, I don't know who did the study, but I'm gonna back it because my kids, we have more fun talking about our experiences than any individual thing I've ever bought. Even the house itself is cool. I mean, it's good to have a home, but our kids, man, when we get around and we laugh and we joke with each other, it's about an experience that we shared. And most times it's something that we had to be intentional about creating the environment for the experience. We got away from calendar, cell phone, friends, the normal. So we had to leave town or we had to go away so that we could just be with each other. And those have been priceless. We just dropped my son off at school in New York. And we got a chance to hang out in Manhattan as a family. And so, I mean, priceless, costly. I'll tell you, it costs something, but I know that as long as I'm alive and they're alive, we will remember that, and we will have jokes about it because we were laughing while we were there. And so, when I've never done a funeral I've never, and I'd rather do funerals than weddings, by the way. But I've never done a funeral where someone brought up what they bought. You know what I mean? Like oh man, they might have had a favorite car, but the car then led to a memory or an experience, right? It wasn't just like they had this thing sitting in the garage that, but it was always something that there was some memory shared from a moment or something that was created by something. And obviously, when I look at pictures that are someone's life story, you can go back through albums. People don't use photo albums anymore, but if you got a photo album, you go back through and be like, oh, where were you then? Oh, I remember that day. Do you remember that? And you can hear them. They begin to recount the day. Like, we were there, and no, mom said this. No, dad said this, and people are talking about the experience, and that to me is what we should focus on. I love that, and so I'm just echoing what you said, but just taking longer to do it.
You're right, though. It's like those family experiences where you got, whatever nephews ragging on someone else, and then, they turn to you, and then they're like looking for some help, and then you throw them under the bus, and everyone loses it. So,
good setup, man. That's a good setup.
I mean,
right on.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is awesome.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I tell my kids this. I said, we do what we have to so we can do what we want to. So it's not well, we just go out and stack up debt and we got credit card just debt oozing all over the place. I don't believe in that. You know what I mean? I believe in being responsible. We need to do the things that we need to so we can do those things. But just as far as just saying, well, I heard that man say that one time about experiences, and so who cares? I'm just going to put it all on the credit card.
Oh, man.
Take that back.
Oh, yeah.
I take that back.
Man, I'll share one. So when I was early in financial planning, I was like, oh, I can solve this problem. Lots of credit card debt, no mortgage. And they owned a house outright. And I was like, oh, I can fix this. Problem. The end of the story is it wasn't a math problem.
See, come on, right.
It was not a math problem. I helped them refi their debt before all the payments blew up because they were on 0%. And there's no way they could pay the money back that they owed.
No way.
So, and maybe it would have been better if it had just all blown up. Because what happened was, once those credit cards didn't have a balance on them, guess what? They all got big balances on them. It was, that really highlighted my inexperience on the people side of how this business works, because that behavioral finance stuff is integral to what we do and helping people build awareness and work through stuff. And sometimes it's therapy level stuff that I'm not going to be able to solve. They need to go talk to somebody.
So same thing happens again right now. What do you say?
Well, first of all, I'd tell that story.
Okay.
Because now I got the experience.
That's smart.
And that is tough. I think I would recommend they go see a therapist, because I would be terrified to be giving them advice and helping them try to solve that one problem, but that's just a symptom. The real issue was they didn't care what the cost was. They were just, going for the experience, going for the feels, and they were addicted to spending money. A lot of people now, they are not alone. There's a lot of people that think about it. Every time you spend money, you do get a dopamine hit.
Come on, man.
Shoot, I'm addicted to spending money.
Me too.
And so that's the hard part, is like, okay, what do I need? What do I want? What's responsible? Let's find some balance here. But when that really gets out of control, that can cause some big problems.
I like I said, I grew up pretty poor, and it was feast or famine. It was completely feast or famine for us, and it was more famine. But when we did feast, it was like, oh my gosh, and without any thought of like, what might we do incrementally with this to long term help us, with our day-to-day activities, things we're going to need to do again, and we had debt that was crazy. When me and my wife first got married, we had mean, we were living so thin margined that my wife was doing daycare, and someone skipped out on us. We did a week worth of daycare for them, and then they were supposed to pay us, and then they didn't. And that the missing of that $200-300, whatever it was, it just spiraled us, man. And I had to go ask my father-in-law for a loan. Very, very humbling. I mean, it was that, as well as just the overall tension of not having enough that I feel like the Lord used to bring about change in us. You know what I mean? Through discomfort. Like the discomfort was so intense that I had to, one, openly express that I didn't have it. I had to go to my father-in-law, which is, you're going to your wife's dad to say, hey, I need money to help take care of your daughter. Then it was tough, right? So going and doing that and having all the other, having to be able to go home when everyone else is going out to eat. No, we don't have it. We're going home, right? That, having to do that over and over and over again, it developed something in me that, in the weight room, we call it time under tension. Like, you can't develop your muscles until they have enough strain long enough. You know what I mean? Like, it can't just be real quick. It has to be a long enough strain to help develop the muscle. It's the same way spiritually or in this way financially. Sometimes you have to be under the tension long enough to where you develop the disdain for whatever that thing is. It changes your behavior. I'm just amazed though at what I feel like was a learning curve that we needed. I hated it when we were in the middle of it, but now I'm very appreciative of that process of when we made a decision not to be late on any bills. We made a decision to say that, you know what, we didn't completely come out of that, but we weren't going to be able to we were not going to be late on any payment that we had made knowingly. I made the payment. We're going to pay it off. And I remember sitting in my living room one day with my wife, and we just prayed, Lord, we've been completely liars. We have said we were going to pay people back that we had no intentions on paying them back. We didn't even have an idea on how we were going to pay them back. We were lying to ourselves. We lied to them. Forgive us our debts, right? Just like the scripture talks about, forgiving us our debts. Forgive us our debts. And then I remember the Holy Spirit saying, you had to let your brother go because your brother owes you $70 and you was acting like you didn't want to forgive him. And it was crazy how the stories, but the same stuff comes to you. You're in it. Like, if he doesn't pay me back, I'm not going to ever lend him any more money again. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, I got like thousands of dollars of credit card debt that I'm late on. And they've been to collections. And so no sooner than we prayed that prayer, collections, I had started getting some settlement offers. Like, you got this much you owe, we'll settle for this much. And we had to take some monies that we had saved up, and we were getting stuff settled. And I remember my wife knows the date exactly, but it was the last time we were late on a bill. It was probably, I want to say it was 2003, 2002 or 3. We were the last time we were late on a bill. So it's almost 20 years ago. Wow. That we just made a commitment that we just weren't going to lie to people about what we were going to do. And so it's just, I'd encourage people that if you're in that place right now, I don't like to call people liars, but we were. I don't know what you might consider yourself, but we were liars, and we were just lying to ourselves. And if you lie to yourself, you lie to anybody. So that's my story.
Man, well, good stuff. That was awesome.
Hopefully that helps. Get in touch with Mike. Yeah.
Okay. I know we both got a place to be. So let's wrap it up. Do you have any final quick thoughts, or plug your laundromat, plug your leadership consulting?
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you heard something that you want me to continue to expound on, or maybe I might be able to help you in some way, they can get with me on social media. I'm obviously there. My name is so uniquely spelled that you won't miss me. So I'll just tell you how to spell it right now. My first name is Dioane, but that's spelled Dioane. The pause there is specific, Dioane. And last name Gates, Gates. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter on the same handle. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you want to get with me on LinkedIn, you want to talk a little bit more about leadership development, maybe I might be able to come and speak at an engagement, or come and hold a leadership development course at your job or place of business. I'd love to be considered, have a conversation around that. Other than that, I love Wichita. Glad to be here. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing very applicable advice, very applicable stories on how to make wise financial decisions and live the best life possible.
Yeah, man. Hopefully it hits somebody right where they need to be hit. I'd love to hear something, some feedback or testimonies or something. If someone ever listens to this and they like, hey, you know what you said there hit me, reach out to me. I'm at Dioane at Outlook. So that's just first name, Dioane at Outlook.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Dioane.
Thank you.